Have you ever wondered what it means to guard your heart? Yeah, I have. It's one of those things that we read about in Scripture a few different places, actually. But, I've always kind of wondered, what does it really mean to guard your heart? And today in Proverbs 4, we're going to kind of answer that. We're going to understand what it means to guard your heart. Turn with me, if you would. Proverbs 4 is where we're at this week. And I'm going to start off with the first two verses here. And it says, "Listen, my sons, to a father's discipline, and pay attention so that you may gain understanding. For I am giving you good instruction. Don't abandon my teaching." You notice a pattern going on here. For those of you who have been with me the previous 3 weeks, there's kind of a pattern on how each proverb starts off, isn't it? It starts off with this listening and paying attention. Heed my words. Don't forget to do something. You need to pay attention and listen. So there's a pattern that's kind of being formed over and over. And when I first started looking at this chapter this week, that was the first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just like all the other ones. It's like I'm like, is this going to turn out to be the same thing that we've been going through? But lo and behold, no, it's not the same thing. You see, these ideas are being developed through wisdom. Let us continue on. Verse 3, it says, "When I was a son with my father, tender and precious to my mother, he taught me and said, your heart must hold on to my words. Keep my commands and live. Get wisdom. Get understanding. Don't forget or turn away from the words of my mouth. Don't abandon wisdom, and she will watch over you. Love her, and she will guard you." You see, this first section here is written by Solomon. And Solomon's, he's talking to his sons through these different proverbs, and he's here in verse 3. He's remembering back to when he was with his parents, David and Bathsheba. He says, "When I was a son with my father, tender and precious to my mother, he taught me and said," and he goes on into this. Verses 4 and the first part of verse 5, he says, "Your heart must hold on to my words, keep my commands, and live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Don't forget or turn away." Don't forget, that goes on with the next one. But get wisdom and get understanding. See, that's encouragement right there. That's the encouragement. He starts off with a good word. He says to hold on to my words, to keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom and get understanding. But after he starts with the encouragement, he starts with a warning. He says, don't forget or turn away from the words of my mouth. Don't abandon wisdom. These warnings not to forget, not to turn away. Because our flesh has a tendency to just turn away from what is good and right and what we've been taught to this wickedness, this evilness that lies in our flesh. And it's that constant battle that we fight to not please the flesh, but to please the Spirit that lives within us. It's these warnings that we need to heed. The warnings are there because we have the tendency to do these things. Okay? So, he goes on, the second half of verse 6, he says, she will watch over you, love her, and she will guard you. You see, wisdom, again, is still being personified. That she's going to watch over you. It's the results of heeding this encouragement, of heeding this wisdom that we are given. You see, we're supposed to strive to acquire wisdom all of the days of our lives. Verses 7 and 9 continue on. He finishes up this first section there and he says, wisdom is supreme, so get wisdom. And whatever else you get understanding. Cherish her and she will exalt you. If you embrace her, she will honor you. She will place a garland of grace on your head and she will give you a crown of beauty. You see, last week we read chapter 3, in verses 13 to 15, I'll refresh your memory, says, happy is a man who finds wisdom and who acquires understanding, for she is more profitable than silver, and her revenue is better than gold. She is more precious than jewels. Nothing you desire compares with her. If nothing you desire compares with wisdom from chapter 3, if nothing compares with wisdom, if nothing compares with Jesus Christ, then wisdom is the way. Okay? If nothing compares with her, wisdom is supreme. It says it right there. It says, if nothing else, wisdom is supreme. So get it. And whatever else you get understanding and cherish it and heed it. Christ is supreme. You see, Christ is worth all of the effort that we and the cost that we put in to gaining Him. Last year I preached a sermon on Luke 14:25 to 35, and it talked about how we must count the cost of discipleship before we say yes to Jesus. We have got to count the cost, because discipleship isn't free. Well, it is free, but it isn't easy. Discipleship will cost you nothing, but it will also cost you everything. But it's worth all of the effort. It's worth all of the costs involved. It's worth everything. As Christ is valued and loved, He will give honor. See, replace Christ in that place where wisdom is being referred to. I did it last week. I'm going to do it a little again in this section here. Christ is supreme. So get Christ. Get Jesus. Whatever else you get understanding. See, cherish Him and He will exalt you. If you embrace Him, He will honor you. And He will place a garland of grace on your head. See, He gives you that grace. And He's going to give you a crown of beauty. Not as in riches from this world, but as in riches from the next. You see, it's all about what is coming ahead of us. And this fleshly existence, this fleshly life is nothing more than just a breath of wind in the history of time. We're here today and gone tomorrow, as the grass of the field rises and falls and the flowers rise and fall. So we will. You know, you think back among history, and just in the history of our country, and it's been 230 some odd years that our country's been in existence, but it seems forever ago. The guys like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and these John Adams, these founding fathers put together our country, but that's been 230 years ago. How many generations have happened in that 230 years? Well, several. You see, we're just a breath of wind in time. Last week we had this versus battle. We had wisdom versus wealth. Well, this week we've got wisdom versus wickedness. The second section here starts off in verse 10. He says, listen, my son, it's singular here. Listen, my son, accept my words, and you will live many years. I am teaching you the way of wisdom. I am guiding you on straight paths. When you walk, your steps will not be hindered. When you run, you will not stumble. Hold on to instruction. Don't let go. Guard it, for it is your life. You see, the way of wisdom is again, I'm line out these actions here like I did in the first week. Accept, listen, hold on to, guard it. These are actions that we've got to actively participate in gaining wisdom. Accepting, listening, holding on, guarding. We've got to hold on to this stuff. I'm teaching you the way of wisdom. I'm guiding you on the right path. See, God is guiding us. He's teaching us how to be wise. And when we walk, we won't be hindered. And when we run, we won't stumble. If we heed God's wisdom and God's word that came and embodied in the person of Jesus Christ. Hold on to instruction and don't let it go. Guard it, for it is your life. You see, youth have a tendency to brush off the older generation's advice and not realize the consequences that it brings if they don't. Speaking from personal experience. I mean, when you're young, don't you just wish that you'd heeded the words of wisdom that you had gotten from your parents or grandparents? I mean, if I'd have just listened to what they said when they said it, and not just kind of brushing, yeah. You just kind of, I don't want to hear this same old story about money or whatever the case may be. Anything. Wait to get married and have kids. Go out and get an education first. That was one of the things that I always heard. But it's we just, as a youth, we have a tendency to kind of brush that off, and we shouldn't. We really shouldn't. It's so hard when you're young to not to just pay attention to those words. I don't know what it is. It's that youth kind of thing. You see, the straight path, he describes here this, he says, I'm guiding you on straight paths. And he says, it's easier to walk on. A straight path is not, I almost described this battle as the easy way versus the hard way. I almost described it as that. But I hesitate on that because the straight path isn't always that easy. I mean, sometimes the straight path is difficult because you got hills and valleys in it. So it's not really an easy or hard. It's just easier than going up and down and sideways. And you got all kinds of stuff going on when you're on a rocky path. It's difficult terrain to walk on. But that straight path is easier to walk on than anything else. You see, we're going to walk and run, but we're not going to have any hindrance or stumbling because that's what God is there for. He's there protecting us. He's giving us His direction and guidance. So we need to follow that advice. We have to accept and listen, to hold on to it and guard it because it is our very life that we hold on to. Guard it with everything you've got. Verses 14 to 17, it says, don't set foot on the path of the wicked. Don't proceed in the way of evil ones. Avoid it. Don't travel on it. Turn away from it and pass it by. For they can't sleep unless they have done what is evil. They are robbed of sleep until they make someone stumble. They eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. There are 6 very, very urgent commands here in verses 14 and 15. Don't set foot on the path of the wicked. Don't proceed in the way of evil ones. Avoid it. Don't travel on it. Turn away from it. Pass it by. He's giving all of these urgent commands to just do everything you can to avoid wickedness. Why? Because 16 and 17, the reasons for this urgency. Why? Because they can't sleep unless they've done what is evil. They are robbed of sleep until they make someone else stumble. They eat the bread of the wickedness and drink the wine of violence. You see, evil controls the life of the wicked. You go down that path, it will dominate your very existence. Evil does that. It dominates everything that you have, everything that you are. And it is all that you will ever think about doing. They're so wrapped up in the chains of sin that that's all they consume is just the pure evilness. It talks about eating the bread of wickedness and drinking the wine of violence. And it's just going to say that your every part of your being is evilness. It's this wickedness that lies in you. And the problem is people don't see that the chains that hold us down, even as Christians, the chains that bind us together, Christ has broken those chains. Don't submit yourself to a yoke of slavery any longer. You don't have to live a broken lifestyle. You don't have to do it. There is nothing that can keep you down. Live a life free of this evil, of this bondage that Satan tries to bring over you. You ever notice that it always seems to be the same people that cause problems in your life? It's always the same person. I mean, coming back to it, doesn't it? It's always that one person that always seems to stir up trouble, And every family's got one. That's just the way it is. But, the questions still lie. Are they eating the bread of wickedness and drinking the cup of violence? Or are you? I mean, the question begs, some of the biggest problems that we face are of our own doing. I mean, we make our bed and we have to lie in it because of our sin that lies in us, and we refuse to let that sinfulness go. He rounds out this second section here, verse 18 and 19. He says, the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, shining brighter and brighter until midday, but the way of the wicked is like the darkest gloom. They don't know what makes them stumble. You see, the righteous and the wicked are being compared and contrasted here. You see, light, think of light and darkness. When you're walking in the light, I can see everything in this room. I'm not going to, well, more times than not if my big feet don't get in the way, but, you can walk and you can see stuff, and you can avoid the pews and, the flowers that are sitting there in front of you. You can avoid all of these things that are laid in front of you if you've got the light in your life, right? But if it's dark, you're going to stumble over stuff, stub your toe, and end up cussing and hollering, or whatever it is that you do, hopping on one leg, whatever it is that you do. You're going to end up stubbing your toe, and you're going to fall because you can't see the things that are there. Okay? There's a story, my grandpa used to work for the railroad, and he would be gone for, a couple days. It was TP&W who he worked for, out of Central Illinois. And he would be gone, and during the day, Grandma would go and rearrange the furniture. And he'd come home at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's dark, not wanting to wake anybody up, and he stumbles over stuff. Oh, man, ow! Yep, she rearranged the furniture. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's that stumbling over and over, it's when it's dark, you can't see it. When you're stumbling in the dark, it's because you don't have the light. You don't have Jesus. Remember last week I read John 1:1, the light was the light of men, and it shines in the darkness. And I mean, it's Jesus. It's Jesus through and through. Jesus is the light. So seek him out in everything you do. The last section, the third section here that is in chapter 4, verses starting in verses 20 to 22 here, says, my son, pay attention to my words. Listen closely to my sayings. Don't lose sight of them. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body. You see, this is another urging to listen and pay attention, because wisdom is eternal life and health. Now, not a health and wealth gospel that some people preach, but an eternal life and an eternal health. Guard your heart. Guard your heart. Verse 23 says, guard your heart above all else, for it is the source of life. Is it any wonder that the New Testament talks about Christ living in your heart? Is it any wonder it talks about guarding your heart with everything you've got? Luke 21:34 talks about this need to guard our hearts, and that's just the one example that I could come up with. But over and over, that phrase may not be actually word for word there, but he talks about the heart multiple times in and through the New Testament. Guard your heart with everything you've got. Okay? Verses 24 to 27 is exactly how you do that. Solomon's even lined it right out for you. Or should I say God has lined it out through Solomon. Verse 24, he says, don't let your mouth speak dishonestly, and don't let your lips talk deviously. Let your eyes look forward. Fix your gaze straight ahead. Carefully consider the path of your feet. All your ways will be established. Don't turn to the right or the left. Keep your feet away from evil. And that is how he ends chapter 4. Guard your heart above all else. Number one, you want to guard your heart, you got to watch your speech. You got to watch what you say. Be encouraging, not discouraging. Luke 6:45, Ephesians 4:29 talk about how we need to watch our speech and be careful what comes out of our mouth, because once you say something, it cannot be taken back. It's out. Once it's out there, it is out there. Guard your heart by watching what you say and how you say it. Watch your wording. Think before you speak. There's an acronym that goes with that, and for the life of me, I can't figure out. It's an acronym for THINK. It's THINK, and it says, think about this. Is it true? Is it honorable? Is it, I don't remember what I is. N is it necessary? And K is it kind? Thank you, Sherry. But we need to think literally. Is what I'm about to say necessary? Is it true? Does it need to be said? Okay, because once we talk, it's out. We can't say it. We can't take it back again. Okay, so that's the first one. Watch your speech. Number 2, be cautious on what you see and where you look. Again, the mind. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. Guard your eyes. Job, in I think it's Job 31, talks about how you make a covenant with your eyes, and I don't care if you're male or female. Make a covenant with your eyes not to see any unwholesomeness. This trash that we see on TV nowadays. All the violence and murder and all of this stuff. It doesn't matter what it is. It's trash. What are you watching that's fruitful? That's why when we went to do the movie ministry, it's like, I don't want to just play secular movies. I want to play something that's going to encourage and help build people up. Pure Flicks is awesome movies, and they're good, wholesome movies for your family. Okay? Watch what you see, and it doesn't have to be in a sexual manner. It can be anything. Watch what you lay your eyes on. Number 2, be careful what you do. Where your feet, it talks about how your feet and where your feet go on that path. Be careful about what you do. You want to guard your heart against wickedness. You want to guard your heart against all of the evil that seems to surround you at all times. You need to guard your heart. You need to watch what you say, what you do, and what you see. That is how you guard your heart and keep yourself from wicked. How easy is that to do on your own? Not very. It isn't. That's why we need Jesus. That's why we need to pursue wisdom. It's the whole point of Proverbs. I've said it all 3 weeks prior to this, and I'm going to say it every week until then. Proverbs is about wisdom, Jesus Christ. You want to pursue wisdom all the days of your life because Jesus is the only way that you are going to live this mortal coil and live it successfully. It is the only way you're going to do it. The only way. You see, Proverbs, I kind of came to this conclusion. I read my commentary. It's the Bible Knowledge Commentary is what I've been using for this sermon series rather heavily. And it's by Walford and Zuck out of Dallas Theological Seminary. And they mention this here in their closing of chapter 4. And he says that Proverbs doesn't only provide the goal, but it provides the route as well. What good is lining out a goal if you don't have the route to get there? See, Proverbs points to Jesus the whole way. The goal of Proverbs, successful living. That's the whole goal of Proverbs. Proverbs is there to enable us to have successful living. And the route is the way of wisdom through Jesus Christ. It's what Proverbs is about. And it comes down to a simple choice, really. We can live life with Christ, or we can live life without Him. But when we choose Christ, it is imperative that we guard our hearts against any unwholesomeness in us. Because if we don't, that is how people fall away. That's how bad things happen. Again, many of the things that we do are of our own doing. Just the way it is. In any problem, there's never just one side to the problem. It's always equal parts. With that said, I have tendered my resignation to the elders and board. Not because of the surveys. The surveys have actually pointed out a whole bunch of things. But overall, I have to protect my family. And there are a lot of vicious rumors out there that are not true, that are coming against my wife and my kids. And as a husband and a father, I can't let my family be destroyed for a ministry. I can't do it. I would be a failure. So we are going to take a step away from ministry for the time being to, I call it a retreat. It's to gather ourselves back up and to come back stronger than ever. Moreover than anything, I have learned that I am not the person that needs to be here. The person that this church needs is a healer. This church needs somebody who is older, somebody who has experienced in conflict resolution, because if I've got a weakness, that is it. My weakness is conflict resolution. I'm not good at it. My viewpoint on conflict resolution is get over it. and that's just not helpful. It isn't. This congregation, before you get a guy like me in here, my calling is growth. That's what I'm here for. It's why I was brought here in the first place. But the congregation isn't quite ready for growth yet. Yet. I said yet. You need a healer here first before you need a guy like me. You need somebody who can heal the years of conflict that have been in this congregation and been brewing for so long. You need a healer. And my friends, that's not my gift. I would do more damage than I would good. And I'm not going to have a church split because of my inability to do something. So I'm going to continue to pray for this church. I am going to help Larry out as much as I can and the elders. My last Sunday is, I've got 2 months. It's per my contract, so I'll be here till mid-July, July 13th. And I am going to do everything I possibly can to help Larry and get things set up so that you guys can find who you guys need. Come to the congregational meeting next week. The one problem that we have had since I've been here is the lack of communication, and that is the one thing that we are aiming to fix. We've got to get the communication better here. We've got to. We don't have a choice. And I am so torn. I have been torn about this. But in my letter, I honestly believe that it is the best thing for my family, and it is the best thing for this congregation. And it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about Jesus Christ. And I am willing to do anything and everything I can and have to in order to make that happen. I have to guard my heart. I have to guard my family's heart. I have to guard your hearts. Because I'm still a shepherd. This church is going to need your prayers. This church is going to need your presence. One of the things that the surveys told was a tale of burnout. This congregation is burnt out. And that's dangerous. We need a healer here. We need a healer. If you need prayer, feel free. Please feel free. This has ravaged my wife and I. Trying to make a decision on what is going to be best. For a month and a half, we've been praying this over and trying to figure out what God is leading us to. And God's not done with us, and God's not done with you. Just trying to make the best thing happen possible. We're going to come to invitation, and we're going to sing Just a Closer Walk with Thee. And yeah, it is appropriate. It is extremely appropriate. Just a closer walk with Thee, because that's what this life is about. It's about just a closer walk with Thee. And to answer your question before you ask it, no, I am not leaving the ministry. I am taking a break to heal and to search out what it is that God has got me prepared for. Because one of the surveys suggested that I'm an evangelist, not a pastor. And I was like, whoa, that's a noble thought. I had never actually thought about that. And maybe that is. Maybe that is what maybe that is what I'm called. Because I've got a passion to reach the lost. So you can help me by praying for me. Praying for God's guidance to come. Sing with me, Just a Closer Walk with Thee.